Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Women's Fitness Academy podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Ellen, and I am here today with Catie Marks. I am a binge eating and body image specialist and also an educator for Women's Fitness Academy. And today I'm interviewing the beautiful, beautiful Catie, who is the owner of Feminine Empowered, which is a coaching and healing business. So super excited for you guys to listen to this podcast and take part of whatever it is that she's working on and her coaching industry. Something I don't really know that too much about, so I'm super excited to learn as well. So welcome, Catie.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
No, thank you so much for making the time. I know it's like 6 o'clock in Sydney now, so it's going into that dinner time. I'm still in Bali time, so it's only 3 o'clock here, which is like perfect for me.
I was going to say your background looks much more exciting than mine.
Yeah. It's actually sunny today. Like it has been a lot of rain lately, so it's nice to wake up and actually get some sun and vitamin D. Yeah. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. How old are you? Where are you based? What's your background?
Yeah, so my name's Catie, as Ellen introduced, and I'm 25 years old, and I live on the Central Coast. It's about an hour and a half from Sydney, New South Wales, Australia, and I have Feminine Empowered, which is my baby. I've been in that business for just over 12 months. I started my journey actually doing e-commerce, so selling products. I started a clothing brand with a friend, which was definitely an experience. And I realized that I just really wanted to help people. And I had undergone a massive transformation in my own life, and I just really wanted to, I guess, pay that forward, and I couldn't really do that through clothing. So then I went and I studied all these different modalities, and before I knew it, I had just started my business. I also am about to finish a law degree, so early next year I shall be admitted as a lawyer, which is really exciting. So
Wow.
I'm going to try and navigate the intersection between law and mindset, because the system needs a lot of improvement, and it needs a lot of open-mindedness and I think nurture and compassion. So I'm looking forward to working in that space as well.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that actually. Yeah, like I feel like law and what you're doing now, it's so opposite. But maybe it's not. Maybe that's just like my idea.
No, it is. It really is.
Wow, that's so cool. So you went from e-commerce and doing that kind of business. So what even led you into this coaching path then? Because I can like coaching and e-commerce or, fashion is kind of very different.
Yeah, so I was working for a fashion brand, and I just really loved the whole vibe, and I've always loved clothes. And as my own journey started to, I guess, veer from materialism. So years ago, I was very, very materialistic. Like I just cared about what car I had, my clothes, designer, this and that. So as I started to heal myself and as I started to change my life, I realized that, I'm very passionate about the environment. So, fast fashion is like I think it's the third biggest killer of our planet. And I'm like, okay, so so I'm not going to name any brands because I don't want to get sued, but any fast fashion label is killing the planet. And I'm so passionate about sustainability and the environment. And when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, okay, so I've got this business where I'm buying clothes from overseas. I'm marking them up. It's also a lot of factories overseas are in human rights violations. So from studying law, I was able to see um, how devastating those circumstances are, and I just could see this like capitalist like regime that we live in, and how consumed I was in it, and I felt really disgusted in myself, and I also felt disgusted in the companies who make literally hundreds of millions of dollars on women's insecurity of needing to keep buying every time they go out, or to make them feel good about themselves. And I was literally an example of that. So no judgment, but it really just made me think like, I'm in the wrong industry. This is not what I'm about. And so when probably my most pivotal moment for me, my transformation was because I've been in quite toxic and abusive relationships in the past. When I transformed my life, when I realized that I was the common denominator, yes, I dated narcissistic, abusive men, but it was me. I was attracting in these men. So when I took the time out, I was accountable and I attracted better. I was like, okay, domestic violence is a huge issue in Australia. And I just found myself following my heart. And it took me into coaching and healing and mentoring and helping women through what I had been through. So it's been a massive journey. And with my first business, I lost a lot of money, a lot of time, but as you would know with business, you know, you're not starting from, if you've had an experience in business, you're not starting from ground zero, you're starting from experience. So, yeah, it's been a long road, but I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah, I love that expression that you're not starting from zero, you're starting from experience. I've actually never heard that before, but it is so true. And I'm currently going through a little bit of like change with my business as well. And like I feel exactly the same. Like it's nowhere near as hard as when you first start like your little baby. So that's super interesting. So you mentioned that you were going through a little bit like domestic violence and stuff like that, and abusive and with partners as well. And I mean, I think all girls can kind of relate to be dating a few fuck boys in our lives.
Yeah.
How were you able to break through that? Because I like just like with my friends, I know it's so hard for them to stop dating these like abusive and fuck boys men.
Look, I really think it comes down to a number of things. Firstly, in my own experience, what it really came down to was low self-esteem. So being very people-pleasing, not being confident in who I was, having no boundaries. So rescuing. So this was where I was at, like I had no value on myself. I just had no it's not that I had no respect for myself in the context of, you know, it wasn't like I was, you know, being a horrible person, but I have very clear values. So when I, you know, did the work and realized, you know, my highest value is love. I'm courageous, I'm brave, I'm loyal, and when I was really thinking about my life in all those things that I valued, I was like, well, my life doesn't reflect that at all. And what it comes down to is the relationship that I have with myself. You know, I'm so busy trying to please other people, and I've never tried to please myself. And so being a deeply empathetic person, I would always attract a very narcissistic type male who was very broken and traumatized, but also very unconscious, so not willing to work through their trauma, not wanting to grow with me, but really just, and I'm not a victim here, because I definitely enabled this narrative. But, you know, I allowed myself to be treated so poorly, to be spoken to be exposed to violence. And it's something that I had to end up standing up and say, okay, what needs to change is myself. I am the person that's responsible for this. Yes, things happened that are really unfortunate and really sad that I had no control over in that specific moment, but the every choice that I'd made took me there. So when I realized that, I was like, okay, it's time to take the reins of my life. And I actually spent a year alone. So I spent 12 months without any emotional attachments, healing, raising my vibrations, and I've finally attracted in a very beautiful partner, and we've been together for 10 months now. And my story, as you said before, it's not an uncommon story. Most women, to some extent, can relate to being treated poorly, people pleasing, a narcissistic partner, maybe not a partner, maybe even a parent or a friend.
Mm.
We all have these experiences. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it, because on the other side, now that I have this beautiful relationship, in my darkest moments, I never thought it was going to get any better than that. So the fact that I know that it does now, you've just got to do the work, is just such a reason for me being in this space.
Oh, I love that so much. And it's like good on you as well for getting out of this. Like, God, it's so sad that you actually see women who are like in their 50s or 60s and they're still just like stuck in this pattern of going from one abusive partner, or not even like physically abusive, but like mentally, or they just find themselves with all these people who are not good for them and who are making them feel like shit, but they just can't leave. Which is, it's so sad to see, I think. So yeah, good on you for actually getting out and doing the work. But like obviously, like you're a very like stunning and good looking girl, so I can imagine that
Thank
year
you.
that year when you weren't like trying to get with anyone, what were you, because I can imagine a lot of guys will still come up to you and like message you and stuff. So like how were you just like, nah, not seeing anyone, like I made my decision?
Well, it's funny you say that. So I don't know if you've ever read or perhaps watched the movie watched the movie Eat, Pray, Love.
Yes, I love that
Um,
movie.
yeah, yeah, and the book is really quite like very fabulous. And she
Mm.
talks about Liz Gilbert talks about how she goes on a year and she's, having no intimacy with men. And so I was inspired by that, and I thought, right. I'm not going to do this. I did have a few whoopsie daisies, but but the point is that there was no emotional investment from me, so no partners. So in the past, I would meet a guy, he'd sell me this, you know, bullshit. There's no better word of describing it. I would believe it because I'd like to believe what I would like to believe, and then I would end up in a relation. I'd end up in this vacuum in this relationship. And next thing I know, I'm 6 months in with this guy. So my rules were like no emotional attachment, and so I actually took on that male role of being like, no, sorry. I was very clear and I was very assertive with my boundaries, but it was interesting for once the power dynamic changing, because I'd always been, unfortunately, very desperate in my pursuit of love, because that's all I ever wanted was love. And so when I changed that power dynamic and I had firm boundaries, and ex-boyfriends were coming out of the woodwork who I never thought I'd hear from again. And it was completely energetic.
Mm.
When your energy changes and you actually decide that you're not putting up with it anymore, you've got boundaries, like sure, if you want to, go for a drink or whatever, that's fine, but this is the line. I'm not interested in anything. When you actually can step into that power, you don't actually want to emotionally invest with them, because for once you're your priority. And I think that was the moment for me when I realized, I was like, sure, I might have gone for a drink or I might have gone on a date with someone, but I had very clear intentions with it, and I didn't allow myself to fall into old patterns that I used to. And so my healer actually said to me, Catie, you need a pattern breaker. You've dated, one of my exes was an ice addict. I didn't know at the
Oh
time.
wow.
Yeah, I'm talking like really full on like ex-partners.
Mm.
And so I didn't know. I was unfortunately living with him, I didn't know, and that was quite horrible. But my healer said, Katie, you need a pattern breaker. You need to go on a date with some really nice dude who can like reset you a little bit. So I did that, and that helped. So it wasn't completely a year of being completely alone, but for me, with no emotional investment, that was, I think, the distinguishing part of it for me.
Oh, that's so interesting. So what is a pattern breaker?
Well, for example, for probably since the end of 2017, I dated the same kind of guy, but the same guy essentially, but in about four different people.
Hmm.
So I would the same pattern would happen. So I would meet someone, I would be sucked into their, poor me story, or maybe there'd be like I was really attracted to that toxic masculinity, that, bad boy vibe, that fuck boy vibe. But then I'd end up dating them and I'd give myself completely to them with no boundaries.
Hmm.
I would allow myself to be cheated on. I would allow myself to be abused. And then so when I came out the other side and I was like, okay, I need to change here because I keep enabling this. The pattern breaker was someone opposite, completely different. So this guy I'm thinking of, he's an architect. He's like, have you seen How I Met Your Mother?
Oh my God, I was just gonna say, if you like that.
He's like he was literally a Ted Mosby. Like he
Oh,
so I'd gone from like ice addict to a Ted Mosby,
oh,
and
he's like a dream guy. It's so cute.
yeah, and so I mean he was a dream guy. He wasn't my dream guy at
Yeah.
all, but he showed me, he was so successful, very wealthy, but not just wealthy as in money, but wealthy as in his mindset, and his life was so rich and full. And so having that stark comparison like shocked me out of that cycle even more. And I knew then that I wasn't going to marry Ted Mosby, but I knew I knew that I wasn't going to go backwards back to what was. So yeah, it was a
Hmm.
really important point.
Ah, interesting. So kind of just someone who shown you another kind of guy who you can date, like another side of it.
Yes, exactly.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, I think that like I know a lot of my friends who say that they like, well, even if it didn't work with this guy, at least I know like how I deserve to get treated. So that makes a lot of sense, 100%. So now you're a coach and a healer. So talk to me about that. What exactly is a healer? Because I'm just thinking of like um like in the kind of movie like African jungle when they have like all these points the pots and like dancing around the fire, but then, like I'm just a little bit stupid about that. Please tell me.
No, to be honest, I actually do plenty of dancing around the fire. I do. No, I do. I'm so this weekend
Love that.
I I have my final training session to become a shaman, which
Oh
is
well.
which is your traditional medicine man. So that's a combination of the Native American, Indigenous Australian, and Peruvian culture. But that's not what I'm doing. That's what I'm going to be implementing. But
Wow, yeah, so tell us about that, like, okay, but first this.
yeah. First this, yeah. So basically, when we are dealing with, trauma, it's held in our body. So if we're going to a therapist and we're talking about it and we're processing it and we're becoming aware of it, that's great.
Hmm.
But the body keeps the score. So the healing needs to be the body, the heart, the mind, and the soul. Okay,
Hmm.
so shamanism is the only healing modality that I'm aware of, at least, that deals with all of these elements. And so, as a shaman, you're healing someone on so many deep levels, and you're taking them through, in some cases, a rebirth. There's an anger ritual that I love a lot. It's really very confronting to witness someone going through releasing, if you think about our society, I'm talking about Western society, we are always told to be fine. So it's like, how are you? It's like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like,
And
no worries. Like, we
exactly.
suppress. Yeah. And if we're not fine, then we get medicated to be fine.
Mm,
And then we're like, we want this docile, if anyone's screaming and releasing emotion, where, oh,
mm,
that person needs help, we should lock them away, they're an embarrassment, like, make sure they're quiet. And so shamanism is about, like, well, emotion's there for a reason. It's
mm,
telling us something. And when you have someone, like most people in our culture, who have always been told to be quiet, don't cry, suppress, and our culture says, oh, no, no, it's okay to cry. But who actually is equipped to hold that space? Who actually
mm.
can sit there and hold someone through that? Who actually does that aside from a paid person? Our society, it's so ingrained in us to reject expressions of true emotion. So when you're dealing with someone who's suppressed anger, and other emotions, and anger is just, a secondary emotion to sadness and grief. So you're dealing with people who've just suppressed for so long, and being able to hold that space for them to release after such a long time is so powerful. And I did an anger ritual. So you hold on to this, like, rock, right? And the healer's got the arms around you. It's this big boulder, you can barely hold it up. And you're not screaming, but you're like, it's like almost like a growl or a grunt. So it's really animalistic. It's very full on, but the emotion that erupts out of people, it's like it's from the stomach. It's this just physical somatic release. Mine was so intense because, as you can imagine, like, I've had very traumatic experiences. Mine was so intense, I burst blood vessels in my face.
No. What? I
So
didn't know that
yeah,
happened.
I was fine, but my point is that I'm normally very calm, happy, a tranquil person, but all this stuff was deep inside of me. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's a beautiful experience if you're looking to clear yourself out on so many levels.
Wow, that's absolutely crazy. So you're just saying that you're holding on to this rock, but surely not just the rock. Like, you have to, like, do you have like a mantra, or are you saying things, or like, how's it work?
Well, you hold the intention of pouring it all into the rock.
Right.
So you're imagining your everything that you need to express going into this rock, and I'm not going to do it, but because screaming is very, look at me, I need to scream. Whereas if you think about what happens when you push an animal up into a
Mm,
corner, it growls.
mm.
And so we as humans, we have these instincts that we've suppressed. And so it's like um, I can't really explain it, but and I don't want to do it on this podcast because people will get scared. But when you've released everything and you're exhausted and you can't do it anymore, then you actually throw the rock. And so
Mm.
I've done this twice, this ritual, and as you throw it, you can feel it completely leaving you, and the level of lightness, the calm, the inner peace that comes from expressing on that level. And of course, you're not just doing it with anyone, you're doing it in a very safe space with someone who's got a lot of experience dealing with people with trauma and PTSD and things like that. So it's a very safe environment. But yeah, it's a beautiful process to just move things on that don't need to be there.
Oh, that's super interesting. I honestly did not even know this was a thing. So, do you mostly deal with clients who have like anger issues, or like, what do they normally come to you for?
So that's what I'm training at the moment. So what I actually do in my practice right now is I do a number of things. The first thing that I and usually women that come to me are have had similar experiences in relationships, or are really looking to let go of limitations and negative emotions from their past.
Mm.
So the way that I deal with that is mainly through timeline therapy, and it's the most amazing, like, oh, it's definitely still, oh, it's hard to say my favorite, but I love it because so if you can imagine that you have a timeline of your life
Mm.
from when you were born to now, and then you've also got in the womb, so when you're in your mother's womb, then you've also got past lives, and you've also got intergenerational. So you can take on things from your mother. So I have many of my clients, when they're in the womb, they will take on their mother's pain. Like if they've got a father who's left, if their mother was abused while they were in the womb,
Mm.
they take it on. So we're dealing with a lot in timeline therapy. And basically, we remove anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt from the timeline. So we go back to the very first time that, say, you experienced anger, and we take out the emotion from the event. It's very, very powerful. And then when you experience anger again for the first time, it's going to be fresh emotion. So let's say the first time you experienced anger, you were 5 years old and something happened, maybe a sibling knocked you over or something like that. Then that's when you're really angry. It acts like a snowballing effect. So then you've got that anger in your body, and then you move to the next event, and then you explode a bit more, and you get more and more explosive as things happen because you're not letting go of the emotion from those events in the past.
Mm.
So it's really important to release it. And timeline therapy does that. It's through the mind, though. So when we were talking about shamanism before and the anger ritual, even though I had in my mind, I had processed my anger, I had taken the emotion out of those specific events, the trauma was still in my body. So I had to, on a physical level, I had to release that, not just from a mental perspective of having the awareness, okay, taking the emotions out. So I'm really looking forward to having all this together to be able to offer, and I can do it all remotely as well, which is great.
Mm.
Um, Also, I do hypnotherapy, which is really powerful. It would actually be really great in a fitness business because it rewires the mind. So if you've got a bad eating habit, or if you bite your nails, or if you smoke, or if you don't want to exercise, or
Mm.
anything like that, hypnotherapy can rewire your brain to motivate you to actually do that. Powerful stuff. So,
Yeah, I have heard about that for like smoking and like someone even said to me, because I obviously am a binge eating coach, and I've heard like NLP, which is what I do, and hypnotherapy are like the what two of the best practices to treat it. And
mm,
someone said that they had gone to hypnotherapists before about their binge eating, and after they done like however many sessions they do normally, they said that they completely stopped, which is like crazy. So can you like
mm.
what happens in a hypnotherapy session? Like I don't even know like really what's going on.
Yeah, it's funny you say that you do NLP because I use NLP coaching strategies as well. I don't do, I usually, if someone's coming to me about weight loss, I usually will refer them on because
Mm,
I'm better, much more equipped with my own experience to be dealing with more
of
yeah,
course.
deep-seated emotional trauma and things like that. But yeah, so hypnotherapy in a session, usually I do them on Zoom. And so there's a couple of important things to know. The first thing is that you're going to be in control the whole time. So it's like a deep meditation. Another thing to keep in mind is you will hear everything, and there's no funny hypnotized feeling. But if you've ever have you meditated before?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yep. So it's just like a meditation. So that I read, it's quite a long script depending, but usually I'm doing it around self-love, anxiety, self-esteem, even memory for exams, things like that. It's real anything to
Wow.
do with the brain. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah, so I've got a big long list. Attracting money, like confidence as a coach, like there's a lot of different things because our brain is always, it's our ego is trying to keep us safe and in our comfort zone. And
Mm,
so the wonderful thing about hypnotherapy is it's kind of retraining our that critical voice in our head to actually help enable us to do more and get more out of life. So it's to do with the subconscious mind. So we've got the conscious mind, which is 10% of our brain. So that'd be the hand that you would pick your phone up with, or if you were intentionally going to pick up your phone and send a
mm.
text.
Yeah.
And then you would know all about this, of course, with
Yes.
NLP.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure the listeners don't. So please keep going.
yeah. And so then we've got the subconscious mind, which is 90% of the brain. And so what hypnotherapy does is it quietens down our conscious mind. So that voice in our head that would, if I said to someone who had low self-esteem, you know, you're a confident person, what are you worried about? Their conscious mind would draw on their experiences from their subconscious
Mm,
to form an opinion and say, well, hang on a minute, no, I'm not, because of, and you wouldn't consciously perhaps remember all those experiences, but I like to think of the subconscious like a big warehouse out the back that holds all of your memories in storage almost, all of your experiences. So when you need to solve a problem or communicate, your conscious mind goes out the back to the big warehouse, ruffles through the files to find relevant information for you to either solve a problem, communicate, take an action, whatever. So if your subconscious mind, your warehouse, is full of really bad experiences, abuse, low self-esteem, or it could be things just like comfort eating, or it could be anything really, smoking, then when you go to make a choice, that's what your conscious mind has to draw from. And so hypnotherapy bypasses the conscious mind, the critical factor, and goes straight to your subconscious and rewires your subconscious mind to be more positive, to see yourself in a different light, to change and transform your experiences of life. So it's very, very powerful stuff and works very well in conjunction with NLP and
mm,
timeline therapy, especially.
mm. That is actually such a good explanation of the conscious versus subconscious mind. I'm gonna steal that.
No, please do. Please do. I like to make things like in examples that we can really physically understand because it's very confusing.
Yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people kind of get them confused as well. And like for sometimes people will react or do things in a certain way, and they're like, I don't know why I just did that. And then you're trying to explain it's just your subconscious. Like I always refer to it as like the autopilot. It's just running the
Mm.
show. Like when you're driving to the gym, for example, all of a sudden, oh, like, oh, I'm at the gym. How did I even get here? Because you've driven that so many times. But I love that, the warehouse kind of analogy. Like that makes so much sense. I could even like see like a little figure in front of me, like going through the files of my memory, like to make sense of things. So that's really, really smart. So you do the healing and the hypnotherapy. Are these the two services you offer, or do you have even another one?
Well, so basically, what I've spoken thus far about with all the really deep healing is called a program that I offer called the Break Free program, where we do, so it's about an 8-week process. It
Mm,
can take longer, but we sort through all of that kind of stuff. It's like a really deep healing, cleansing. It's basically a rebirthing process. So you're essentially like, I'll never forget when I took myself through this process. I for a long time wasn't sure who I was because when we
mm,
have all this trauma in our past and this story that is so ingrained in our identity, like it's really hard for people to let go of their story because it's part of who they are. I was an example of that. I was like, have respect for me because I've been through this. I'm so strong because I've been through this. But that's not what I want my story to be. So it's the Break Free program is about telling a different story. It's really powerful. And then what I also offer is self-mastery coaching. So this is usually best if you, I mean, you can do it before the Break Free or after. It's very rare that someone, especially in my age group or our age group, who's really ready to go through a process like the Break Free. Because if you're new to spirituality or self development, it can be very confronting, especially thinking of where am I going to go on my timeline. You know, it's a very confronting experience. So then I've got coaching. So this is all about becoming the master of yourself, your own life, particularly managing burnout, perfectionism, and also for women who are lonely. Like we might be, for example, I'm an alpha female, or I feel like I have those tendencies, and so it's very lonely and difficult to connect with people sometimes, and actually to harness that alpha energy. So we work on that as well. So in a nutshell, a very long story. That's what I'm offering at the moment.
Oh, that's amazing. So when you yourself were struggling with all these things, did you get help from a coach, or did you just kind of study and you helped yourself that way, or how did that work?
So it kind of, and really don't like saying this, but it become because it's just not a reflection of my true essence.
Mm,
But the reason why my spiritual journey started was because I wanted to make more money in my business, and I
mm,
heard about manifestation. This is when I had my clothing business. And I started listening to the Manifestation Babe podcast. That's where it really started. And I'd always been someone who's gone to see healers and things like that. I've loved psychics. I've always, you know, really been interested in it, but
mm,
not really. I've been interested, but it wasn't something that was really ingrained in my life. And so when I started learning about manifestation, that kind of snowballed. And then from there, when we went into lockdown, you know, I was locked in my room and I'm like, okay, well, I need to meditate. I'm going insane. I need to do yoga. I'm going insane. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
No,
I don't want
I
to
can
trigger anyone.
definitely relate.
Oh, um, so I mean, I believe that I would have always ended up here, but COVID definitely fast-tracked that process for me. But yeah, it was just, and then the real healing came, as you say, from actually doing the courses,
Mm,
from doing the hypnotherapy course, and then realizing how much I could use it for myself, and all my healing modalities I actually can do on myself. So I don't need to see someone else. So then I kind of committed and I said, okay, well, this last year of my study, I'm going to be a student with my law as well. I'm going to focus on getting as many tools in my belt, learning as much as I can, healing, just taking away these layers and layers of my mentor says the greatest gift that we can give ourselves is taking away our conditioning. And I think that is very true. Anyway, so, you know, along this journey, I've ended up here, and right now I have a business coach, which is very, very helpful. But to be honest with you, most of my work has come from me.
mm,
I've had people help me, sure, but a lot of it has been from actually doing the courses and
mm,
taking myself through this process. And I think that's what's really important in this industry is actually is yes, getting a coach, yes, absolutely getting a healer, but also having and you would understand this, but also having the understanding that the change comes from the individual and the
mm.
level of energy you're willing and money you're willing to put into yourself. So yeah, it's been a bit of both, but mainly myself just working really hard at being the best I can.
Mm. No, I love that. And I also think that because I was kind of the same, like with my binge eating and eating disorders, and like some aspect, it's like, yeah, I wish I would have gotten more help, because I think that I would have ended a lot easier and quicker for me. But at the same time, I'm really glad that I did go through it all on my own, because now I have such a unique perspective on how to coach it. And yeah, I have studied a lot as well, but because of my previous experiences, same as you, now we have like our own completely unique programs, where someone who's never really gone through these experiences, they wouldn't, like, they've gone to the courses, but they don't really know what it feels like to be on the other side.
I agree. And I think that's what makes, businesses very successful, is the level of authenticity. And you are incredibly authentic in your business, but having had those experiences, and I think that's, what really made me so passionate about what I'm doing, is that I had to work it out by myself. I got to a point where I was like, I actually cannot live like this anymore. I'm going to give this a go. Otherwise, I don't want to be here anymore. I was like, I can't live this existence. And so from being at that really low point, and then the slow climb, the trial, the error, but it's been such a robust and rich experience that, as you say, I can then share with others, and they probably don't have to do as much investigating or searching, because I've done it all for them.
Yeah, but that's nice. So if someone, I can imagine a lot of people listening to this and they're like, well, where the fuck do I start? Like, if they have a lot of trauma that they feel like, well, they want to change how they feel about themselves, or just move on to the next level in their life, I guess, what would you say would be like the first thing that someone would have to do?
Honestly, get on YouTube and do a 10-minute meditation every morning. That's it. Like, when you can learn to quiet down the head noise, and see really clearly, when you start meditating it, and really actually commit to this process, because you probably have listened to this, or you've seen other people, and you're hearing their story, not at the end of their story, but when things start getting good. And that's the thing, is that, I always try, and, I always tell people, like, I spent a year alone. And I really explain to people that it's been difficult, but I think that can be overwhelming sometimes. So if you literally, and it sounds so simple, but what it's going to do is it's going to clear the fog around your life. For me, when I started meditating, I really woke up to the relationship I was in, and I was like, okay, this is not going to work. It also helped me to, depending on your beliefs, but it helped me to connect with the divine, and it helped me to feel supported in my daily life. And I would try different meditations. I do a connection to my higher self, or I would do a inner child one, or a forgiveness one, or whatever I felt I needed, I would type it into YouTube, and I promise you that there's a meditation for it. and just commit to it for a month. And then what will happen is it will get the ball rolling, and you will naturally fall into or stumble across something else. It will all happen the way it's meant to. So if you just start small, commit to something that's really realistic, and really get good at that one thing, other things are just going to start falling into your lap.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And like, before I came here, I was in a very bad place. Not very bad, but it was bad for me. Like, I was struggling to remember things. I was always stressed. Like, I had so many thoughts in my head all the time. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus on something for more than like 2 minutes. And I started doing meditation every morning. And even I just did 5 minutes every morning, and I just forced, like, the first day was hard as fuck. Like, after 30 seconds, I was like, I need to go. Like, I can't sit here any longer. I'm wasting time. I'm not, like, I have all these thoughts. I can't relax, and all that head noise. But as I kept doing it, it got so much easier. And like, I started to be able to sleep. I started remembering things again. I could have conversations without me constantly like thinking of other things. And like, honestly, guys, even if you're like, oh, I can't meditate, I don't know how to do it. No one really can. Like, you just sit there and you like let your thoughts just come and like watch them pass and just allow your mind to quieten. And having all that head noise, it's normal. And I think that's
Mm.
the hardest part, is just like sitting there and allowing yourself to have all that head noise and not judging yourself for it.
That's exactly right. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's not easy. Like, and this is, and I was saying to my partner the other day, like, it's no surprise that that so many people across the world, like monks and things like that, have dedicated their life to being and to actually being completely present and connected. Like
Mm,
it takes a devotion. And
mm,
oh, that would be it. It's intentionally devoting to yourself, to your mental health. And I haven't been diagnosed. I decided young when I was younger, because I've always struggled with mental health ever since I was probably about 15, really quite severely. But I had the awareness of, I know what I'm like. I don't want to get put in a box.
mm,
And I was seeing a psychologist, and I said, don't diagnose me. I don't send me to a psychiatrist. I know I can get over this myself.
mm.
And I've definitely had to work harder than most people. Um, and with the head noise and the ego and the intrusive thoughts, but you can get better. And as you say, you kept at it and it got better. And I actually, for the very first time in my life, I was in the bath the other day and I was focusing on just completely white, just trying to quieten down my mind. And for the first time, I experienced nothing, like complete nothing in my head. And
Wow.
my brain completely let go. And I'm like, thank goodness I didn't go, because I was getting close to going in, getting some more help. But I'm like, thank goodness I just stuck to this and I trusted and I believed in myself, because now I know that I can visit that place whenever I need to.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. What did it feel like? Should not, I guess, did it even feel like anything, like having no thoughts?
Yeah, it was just like nothing. Like I can't um I can't describe it other than it was nothing. And my
Yeah.
partner said, "Oh, that sounds boring." I'm like, not to someone like me who has never been at, even when I sleep, my
Mm,
dreams are so vivid and
mm.
jam-packed, and so I wake up often feeling like I haven't slept. So for me, in my crazy brain, like that nothingness was just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like, you are, I honestly, I haven't been meditating since I got here, and now like listening to you, I'm like, I not need, but I want to get back into it, because when I was doing it religiously every single morning, I got up to like 20 minutes and it was like, oh, I don't want to stop. Like, I want to keep going. Because first, that 5 minutes is so hard. And then once you start liking it, it's like you don't want to leave. And yeah, like you said, I don't never got to the point where I was like having nothing. But I remember there was one particular day where I could just feel like my whole body was just vibrating. And
Mm.
it was just such a beautiful feeling. And like, I just started crying, and I don't know why. And it was just amazing. And so every time I feel like I want to give up, I think of that feeling and like, you can get back to it again.
That's beautiful. It's honestly amazing what can happen in a meditation.
Mm,
I've had like insights into my future, not my future, but my next step, what I need to do. Like
mm,
it's actually such a beautiful process.
mm,
But by the way, what I find is I get really good at it, so I'm not a consistent I only do it when I need to do it, which is not
mm.
good. I should be doing it every day.
Yeah.
I should be doing it every day, but it is one of those things that, I mean, I do something every day.
Mm,
It doesn't necessarily mean it's whether it's meditation, whether it's just setting intentions or journaling or acknowledging the divine or
mm,
whatever. Just I do something, but
mm,
I think it's one of those things you can kind of get to a point where you can become the master of your mind.
mm,
And once you have that strength to go, okay, I know that I've got this when I need to,
mm,
it takes a lot of pressure off.
mm, mm. Yeah, I love that so much. I just looked at the time and I just realized we've spoken for almost an hour. I don't know where the time went. That went so quickly. But I feel like I could just talk to you forever. Like this is so interesting, and I know that everyone, like all our listeners, are gonna love this as well. But before we go, is there anything that you have coming up that you would like to plug, or yeah, anything that in future that you would like to share with us?
Well, nothing other than blessings on your journey. I mean, I really think that just to tr it's really important just to I'm a big believer in trusting the
Mm,
process, and I offer some really amazing programs that are so transformative, but I also know that people need to be really ready for
mm,
something like this, and it takes a big energetic investment.
mm,
So if anyone's listening and they feel drawn to working with me and really uncovering their truth, working through their trauma and becoming in charge and being, the epitome of self-mastery, then I'm definitely here. But yeah, otherwise, I just wish you so much love, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I've loved this conversation.
yeah, so have I so much. Guys, if you like this conversation as much as us, please remember to take a screenshot and tag myself, tag Catie, tag Women's Fitness Academy Australia, and just so we can say thank you, so we can connect. And like we love having conversations in the DMs, like that it just makes you feel so much more connected in this virtual world. So please remember to do that if you like this podcast. And again, Catie, thank you so much for taking an hour of your day to have a beautiful chat with us and share all your amazing experiences and programs, and just inspiring. I can't speak for everyone else, but at least inspiring me to really get back into that spiritual kind of side of myself again. Because honestly, every time I have gotten into it, I just felt like absolutely incredible. So thank you for that reminder.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.